Hi, Camelia here. Welcome back to a new video. Today I have for you, I think it's going to be a little bit longer video than the last ones because I'm going to share with you my latest make, another coat, and I'm going to talk a little bit about I don't know, things in general, what I'm taking care when I'm making my coats. As you might know that I am a big fan of making coats, especially wool coats, and so a lot of tips and tricks. I'm going to take a look together with you to a coat, a ready-to-wear one, and I just want to say that there are some elements that did surprise me because it's not an expensive coat, but there are some things that we are doing in our homemade coats because we want to have quality, and I was surprised to find them also in this ready-to-wear coat. And I'm going to share with you some books that I'm using and a few tips and tricks on adding lining to an unlined coat pattern, and show you the interface I'm using, and also I made my own shoulder pads. So stick around, take a cup of tea or coffee. I have a glass with cola, and let's take a look. So first of all, if you are not a subscriber, please consider subscribing to my channel and put your notifications on to get notified for new videos, and also don't forget to like this video and maybe share it with your sewing friends. So let's get started. A few years back I made a coat. I saw this pattern, the Dawson Coatigan from the Thrifty Stitcher. You can see here the drawing, and here is the pattern envelope illustration. And I think I saw somewhere on the internet, I saw popping up a picture with some details on this coat. It has on the back and on the sleeves, it has some really nice some darts that on that picture they were sewn because the pattern is made to have the darts as a detail sewn on the outside. But that really intrigued me. I found the lines really nice, and it was a really loose fit, and I made this coat. I made it a few years back, and there is review here on my channel. You'll see it also about regarding sizing and how I chose my size. So I just want to say that I wore that coat a lot. I still have it and I still wear it. I really love it, but as I said at the time, is this one going to make some noise with my microphone, I think, is this coat with a really nice bounded seams. But what I did not like about this coat was the fact that it didn't have a lining. And to be honest, putting a lining in a coat or binding all the seams in the same coat, I think is taking, maybe the lining is taking lesser time. But this one, it's really pretty on the inside, but as I said in that video, the problem was that being unlined, I really had to think about what I was wearing, because of course this wool is going to stick against clothes depending on the fabric of the clothes I was wearing. So that was something that I really missed in my really lovely coat, a lining. And I promised myself if I was going to make this pattern again, I was definitely going to add a lining. Before I'm getting to the lining and to the pattern, I just want to share with you a while ago I bought a coat. It's a second-hand coat, and I do that sometimes. I buy them for buttons and stuff like that, and because I had it, and it is actually the size is just too big for me, it was really for the buttons. There are a few details. I was thinking I'm going to open it up because I'm curious to see how it's made on the inside. So I just took a seam ripper and I opened it up, and I was really surprised to see the details that or the elements that are also added in a coat like this. This is a ready to wear. It's really not expensive. Maybe, I don't know, when it was new, maybe it was not more than 40 euros. It's a CNA garment, and there are really a few. It's really satisfying to do this. I'm not going to do that in my coats ever. And it was really fun to see the things, how the coat is made actually, and the things that I'm doing in my coats, they are also in this coat. So first of all, if when I open it up, I noticed that all the pieces, the front and the back, everything is interfaced. I noticed that they used non-woven interfacing, and this fabric is a little bit structured, so I will never use a non-woven interface in my coats, because in a fabric like this, which it has no loft to it, it has no structure, I think a non-woven interfacing, I always get the risks to have it looking like it's interfaced with paper. So in my coat I used some woven interfacing, and I'm going to show you in a minute. So this is all the pieces are interfaced. I see that they do use pretty big seam allowance. I think it's 1.5 centimeters. Something else, in my coats mostly I am interfacing the front, the complete front. I'm interfacing the hems of the back coat, of the back of the coat, because the front is already interfaced. I'm interfacing the hems for the sleeves of the sleeves, and of course facings, if there are facings, the collars I'm interfacing, and in the back I am interfacing only the upper back. But in this coat everything is interfaced, even the sleeves are interfaced, are backed with interfacing. Something else what I noticed is that this is the front of the coat. This is the front armhole. They added some tape, is also non-woven tape, I think, of course to give the armhole a little bit strength, and to avoid stretching it with wear. This is also something that I'm doing, and I saw this of strengthening the armholes in the Craftsy class from Kennedy King. He has a really nice method to make your own tape to put around the armholes for reinforcement. It's a really nice method, and I really highly recommend that class on Craftsy. Is fly front, something like that, coat. I'm going to put a link in the description of the video. It's a really great class. It's he's making their coat there. In the past it was also a pattern with that class, but not anymore. But the tips and tricks that is sharing there in that class is really worth it. So the armhole back and front is reinforced with some tape, and then they have here, so this is also something that I'm mostly doing in my patterns, not always, I should do in my coats. Then I see here that they added sleeve head. It's just a really thin, I don't know, something like you'll use for for quilts and stuff. It's really something really thin in this case, batting. And then they had here, but I took it out, and I'm going to share with you in a moment why. And they had this kind of shoulder pads, which is made of 2 layers of batting and 1 layer of, it's a really thin spongy stuff. And this one was also sewn here as a shoulder pad in the jacket. Something else that I noticed that they do, as this is something also that I'm doing, is they anchored, mostly I'm anchoring my lining to the coat here at the shoulder, and at the underarm mostly I'm just grabbing into the coat, and I'm sewing the seams, the underseam of the lining with the underseam of the coat together to keep this in place. But I see that in this coat they are adding just a piece of lining, and I don't know, I think it's a few centimeters long, to keep it in place, so that the lining, when you put your hand in your sleeve, is not pulling all the way. And the same method they have here, this thing, they also had it at the top of the shoulder. So again, something that I also do in my coats. I still need to do in this one. For the rest, also here I see that the pocket, the coat has welt pockets, or not, or something. No, there is a pocket in a seam, but the pocket back can you see here, is anchored with a piece, I think this is a piece of selvage of the lining, is anchored to the side seam of the lining to be sure that the pocket is going to stay in place. I think there are really nice details that you probably think that in ready to wear, because we used to think about ready to wear, that everything is made really fast without no attention to detail. I'm pretty sure that most of the times is true, but there are quite a few details that I did not expect. So this is also really cool. The pocket bag is with a piece of selvage lining made to stay, you know, that is not fluffing all the way around. So these were the details, and if I was to look here down, the lining, so I'm from the team, sew as much as you can when you make a coat with the machine. I'm not putting linings by hand and stuff like that. I never did. I could do it, but I want to be fast, and I know that I can do it well with the machine, so I'm always going to do that. And this is something, another detail that I also do in my coats, is after I'm putting the lining, I'm bagging the lining, I am grabbing into the coat, and I see here, you believe it or not, this is made, so this is the hem of the coat, you see here, and from the inside is the two seam, or the hem is made of the coat is made with a few hand stitches, is catched here in the seam, so that this is going to stay in place and is not going to fold, you know, open. This is really also really nice. Most of the time I am getting in through the hole in the sleeve of the lining, and I'm catching that by machine, but of course with a needle hand and this with a needle and with your hand is also very fast. Look, these were the buttons I missed too, but I really kept this coat because I knew that I wanted to take a look at it how it's made on the inside. So again, if you have a coat that you are not wearing anymore, is too destroyed to give it away, you can open it to take a look. Maybe you can learn something. Now, getting back to my own coat, to my Coatigan, I want to say that first of all, I had the pattern that it was already fitted, and because I'm still wearing that coat, I knew that I'm going to fit in the same pattern exactly, so there was not necessary to make any fit adjustment. The only thing that I was complaining also in the other video, it was the fact that I did have to adjust a little bit there, the armholes and stuff like that, and I forgot at that point to add a little bit length back to the sleeves, and I added 1 centimeter. I had the old coat on, and I was thinking I'm going to add 1 centimeter to the pattern and it's going to be enough. So you'll find out in a few minutes that it wasn't enough. So I added 1 centimeter to the pattern, and then after that I started to think about the lining, how I was going to approach that, because there are a few things to consider in this coat. For example, if you have a little bit simpler a pattern with not details like this one, I think maybe it will be even easier. But in principle, a coat is, or the lining of a coat is mostly almost the same as the outer shell, but with a few adjustments that you should make. And I just want to take a pause here because I'm looking to buy, to change my sewing machine, to buy an embroidery and sewing machine. And I'm watching videos for embroidery on YouTube, and somebody said that for someone that is new to embroidery, is good to take a look a little bit how embroidery patterns are made, to understand how the patterns are working when you are working with them, even if you are not a designer. And I'm thinking that I have a lot of books about pattern drafting and how patterns are made, not so much because I want to be a pattern drafter, because I have no intention in that, but because I find it really interesting how the things are going together and how the things are drafted and made, and what are the decisions to make the pattern in a way or another. So I was thinking, yeah, that's true, because also in my sewing garments is really helping me to know how things, why are made in a way or another way, and to think a little bit logic when I need to do stuff myself. So in this case, the lining. To be sure that I'm not going to mess it up too much, I have this book. Good pattern, a good friend of mine recommended. It's called Pattern Cutting Techniques for Ladies Jackets from Joe Baker Waters, and this is for drafting ladies jacket, but there is also a chapter on to how to draft the lining based on the pattern that you have drafted in this case. But of course I had already the pattern, so I took some tips from this book, and I am really pleased to say that everything worked really well in this jacket. So again, this jacket is made without a lining. It has a facing, and it has also a facing for the sleeves. And why is that? Because the sleeves, they have 3 darts here, so that will be really difficult to cut it in one piece. So they have 3 darts, and as I said, there is a facing for the front of the jacket. So the starting point was, of course, when I started with the front, I took the front piece of the outer shell and married with the facing, and I knew that the rest of that front piece is going to be lining. I added seam allowance to it. So if you take a look at this is the front panel. So I placed my facing here, as you can see it here, and this little piece together with the rest, with this, became my lining. I added seam allowances, of course, to my lining piece, and something very important which I did not do, and I did later when I was already putting the lining. I realized the lining is important to be shorter than the outer shell. So normally the best was to cut my lining piece, to cut it at the cutting line of the hem line of the shell, but I forgot that and I had to cut it later in fabric, which did messed up a little bit with my pattern. I had a border print in my lining, and I wanted to have a little bit of the black here, but because I made that mistake, the black is gone. So for the front, if you have a coat, you always have a facing, mostly. To get the pattern piece for the lining, for the front, you have to put your facing, and the rest, what is from the outer shell, is going to become a second piece for the lining. In my case, because I was thinking, because that front panel has also a little, where is it? You can see it became a really thin piece because I took the facing away, and this was the lining now. And what I could have done, but I didn't do because I didn't want to take so much to make so much work of it. This is the side front panel. So I just cut this in lining, this one in lining. This is the same, exactly the same piece as the front, only in the front the original piece has also the pocket. So again, what I did here, so this is the side front panel of the outer shell with the pocket. It has a pocket, but for my lining I did not have to add a pocket, so I just traced a line on the shell, added a seam allowance, yes, because I knew that this is going to meet with my front piece, and this is my lining. And like that I went away with all the other pieces. Something else that I had to change later, for example, the back. This jacket has just it has a lower back piece. Is this one? I made the same for the front, for the lining. Only again, it had to be cut here at the hemline to make it a little bit shorter than the outer shell. For the sleeves, this is a change that I made based on that book, to be sure that I'm going to have space. I raised, or at least, you know, I follow the book, I raised a little bit the sleeves here at the seam, and I think I raised them, I'm not sure exactly by how much, and I did the same. Let me see, I added a pleat here as per the instructions in the book, and this is my original piece. Oh, and of course this is the original piece of the pattern with the darts, but I didn't want to make the darts in the lining sleeve. So what I did, I closed the darts here in the original in the shell sleeve pattern, and I just made this one to be without the darts. Really easy. So in principle you are copying a little bit. Most of the time you are going to copy the outer shell. For example, this is the back piece, the upper back piece, which it has of course the most details. It has all those darts here, and of course I made again, this is, you know, when you are working for the first time, you are making stuff, you are going to make mistakes, but of course you have to, if you are a sewer, you are going to learn also how to fix those mistakes, and don't get immediately disappointed and think I'm going to throw it away. So this was my piece. I was thinking, well, I'm so smart, I'm going to make my back piece, the upper back piece. Here I raised my shoulder a little bit, or the armhole I raised a little bit. I added 1 centimeter because I knew that I'm going to add shoulder pads in my coat to give me a little bit of space. And I also added how much? Being cut on the fold, I added a ½ inch to give me that moving pleat here at the center back. And I had everything cut, and I was thinking, well, wait a second, I think I want to have also a little bit of a facing here at the lining at the back of the, I'm going to put a picture at in the lining, you know, at the back. So I had already cut my fabric from the lining, and I did not have enough, I think, to cut another one, and I didn't want to waste it anyway. So what I did, I took the pattern piece. I decided on how much I wanted to have my facing. I traced it, also the darts, and then I closed the darts, and this is what I got. And of course I still have a little bit of the darts here left, but it was only a little bit, and it was really easy actually to ease it back in this seam here. Can you see that? It was really easy. So I just cut my piece, my pattern piece that was already cut in lining in fabric. I just placed this on it, I cut it away, and then I could go to sew. So when everything was done, I have so I just want to say that the lining went really nicely in. There was it's important when you are making a lining for your pattern that doesn't have lining, to walk a little bit the pieces and to see if they are fitting together. For the, as I said, I used the bagging method for the coat, as I'm in the theme of bagging stuff and making fast but good. And I used here the same method as I used in the McCall's jacket, you know, the short jacket that I made not so long time ago. I'm going to put a link in the description and you can see that. It's a really neat finish here. And let me think. I was thinking about top stitching here, but then I said I'm not going to top stitch because this wool, this is from Minerva. I'm going to put a link to it. I think they have it in a bunch of colors. It was really nice and it pressed nice, and I was thinking, you know, I'm just going to leave it like this because it's really way too nice to put top stitching on it. And as I said, the sleeves, so I had it sewn together. I was at a step to sew the lining in the jacket, and I put it on, and I realized that my sleeves were too short. Not by much, I think by maybe, how much did I add? 1 centimeter, I think, too short. So I was thinking, should I let them like this, or should I did have enough fabric to cut another sleeve, another pair of sleeves. So I was thinking, should I let it like this, or should I just take a little bit of time and make new ones? And of course, because I know that the short, I like to have short sleeves or not too long sleeves in my coat, but I was thinking it's going to bother me and it's going to annoy me for the next 5 years if I'm going to leave the sleeves like that. So I just took out the sleeves from the coat. I cut new ones, but the problem was that my lining was also done, and I definitely didn't have enough fabric to make other sleeves for my lining. So my solution to that, because I had the new sleeves that were 2 centimeters longer, and if I was to put the lining to keep the same facing with my new sleeves, I knew that the lining, it would have been too short, and it was the chance to start pulling everywhere. So my solution to that was to cut new facings for my sleeves, and now my facing here in the sleeve is just 2 centimeters longer than it should be, or than the original pattern, but that kept my lining to have a little bit of a pleat here inside and to give me a nice movement. So again, another thing that you know, when you have you make a mistake, you need to think for solutions and not despair very fast. So that was my solution for the too short sleeves. Make new sleeves, make new facings. That took just maybe a half hour. Put the sleeves back in, and everything went really nicely, and I really like the length, and I think having this wide facings is not even looking so bad, but I'm not going to wear my coat like that anyway. For the shoulder pads, I didn't have shoulder pads anymore, and I am one of those people that like to have stuff in the stash, and I usually have a bunch of zippers and buttons and shoulder pads and interfacing and stuff like that. But I think I made a lot of coats in the last period, because I knew that I bought a while ago 10 pairs and I didn't have any more. So to be honest, I didn't want to pay €5 and then €10 for delivery. So I was thinking, and to wait a bunch of days. So I was thinking I'm going to try to make mine, to make my own shoulder pads. And then I went back to that CNA coat, because I knew that I saw that they had something really I don't know, simple. So I went back in that coat and I realized that they had these shoulder pads, really not so thick, and I also didn't want to have thick ones in this coat. So I went a little bit in my stash and looked for similar stuff, and I found this. This is also something that they use for quilts. You can see it's pretty thin, and I have here some other interfacing that I bought it. I think it was listed as something to be used for shoulder pads and stuff like that, and it's something that you see, it's also a little bit spongy. And I cut 1 layer of this and 2 layers of this, and I traced first these ones. I opened it up. It was just sewn with some big stitches. I opened it up and I have it here, and to be sure that I'm not going to mess up, I just colored them. I did a B here for the back to be sure that I'm not going to mess them up, and then put them together, sew them together with some big stitches, and there were my shoulder pads. And I can say that they worked really great in this coat, and I'm going to save this and save this for future makes, because they are really much cheaper, and it's really nice that I can make them as thick or as thin that I want, depending on the coat and the style I'm making. So this is and I think there are a lot of tutorials online maybe to make, but for me this worked really nicely. You know, I was showing in the other coat that they use that tape for the armholes. Again, that Craftsy class from Kennedy King, it has a lot of information on making your own bands. But for myself, for this coat, I used again this bias cut interfacing, fusible interfacing with a row of straight stitches in it. And this one is the T12 from Flisselina. Probably, you know, depending where you are living, you'll find it from other brands and other names. But it's this stuff that I'm using also mostly for stay stitching armholes and neck lines. And talking about fusible interfacing, I want to show you the one that I'm using. Is this stuff. It's a woven interfacing, which is, this one is the black version. I have it also in white, but I want to say that I have the feeling that in white it's just a little bit stiffer than this one in black. And I noticed that if I am to press it as I got it on the instructions with let me see, so in like with my iron on the cotton, no, the wool, on the wool settings or the 2 points, is really not melting this glue. And I noticed that I really need to press the interfacing in with a hot iron, and to be sure that I'm not going to melt everything, it's important not to press until everything is getting onto the fabric, you know, like you get a imprint of your iron on it, but just to keep the iron that the glue is melting. I'm using a towel like this. I'm just making it really wet and put it on the fabric. It's working really much faster than using the steam on my iron. And for pressing stuff on my coat, I'm mostly using the power of the steam and the heat of the steam with a cloth if I really need to put the iron on my fabric. And I have here with a pressing cloth which is made of organza. The same if I'm interfacing something that doesn't need to have steam, I'm using always a pressing cloth to be sure that I'm not going to get stuff on my iron. For pressing seams, I'm using, you know, the clapper. This is not the original clapper, it's just a piece of hardwood, but it's working really, really great. And of course, something that is very important when you are making coats, to have pressing a seam roll, or I don't know. This one is made from the same, is filled in with what's the name? That wood stuff. That is the same that I'm using for my pressing hem. And this one is also very, very useful. So this is what interfacing and how I am applying it to the garments. Again, making a coat is really not so difficult, especially one like this where I have no closures, I have no buttons and stuff like that I need to worry about. The only thing that you need to worry about when you are making a coat is to take the time, first of all, to fit the pattern. And so something went wrong with the end of my video. So I was saying that the only thing that you need to worry about when making a coat, as it is just sewing, is to really fit your coat well. And this is a great book that can help you, or at least it helps me a lot. The Jackets for Real People from Palmer Pledge. Of course, there are a bunch of other books, but this little book is really, really helpful. And again, it's important to take time to press your coat, interface well, use good support for your shoulders, that your coat is hanging nice from your shoulders. Take care, especially with pressing. Pressing is a really important thing and can make bed sewing look really, really well if you are doing it correct. And you know, the other way around, if you are pressing wrong, a really well sewn coat can look really bad. So this is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video and you got some tips and tricks to make your own coat. Do try to make a coat if you are afraid of. It's really not so much difficult than just sew a dress. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up if you like it, and I hope to see you next time on the channel. Bye!